One Shot was a game I had heard of a long time ago. I saw pictures of the protagonist, thought to myself, that's a cute design, and didn't really linger on it any longer. Fast forward to November 2022, with my current experiences and opinions on video games. I start to think about that old RPG Maker game I saw back in the day, the one with the cat character. Apparently, there was a console re-release of One Shot 2 months prior, so maybe this was the time to try it out, once and for all. My curiosity was piqued, and I installed the World Machine Edition on my Nintendo Switch, ready to play this game that eluded me, and I can safely say, I loved it. I'm not going to say it changed me as a person, plenty of games have already done that for me. However, I still felt a strong emotional resonance with it. I should mention, as this game is very story heavy, this video will also be very spoiler heavy. If you haven't played the game, it's on Steam for $10 and on consoles for $15, since there's added content there. I would not recommend you watch this video if you indeed have not played One Shot, as I will assume that you have played it, so it'll seem a bit scattershot and confusing to those that don't know the context. If you don't mind certain parts of the game being spoiled for you, I've included timestamps in the description for each section of the video, so you can skip around if you wish. However, tread lightly. If you don't care or don't plan on playing it but still want to watch, I understand, but remember, I didn't plan on playing it for 8 years, and my eventual playthrough was significantly improved by having nothing spoiled for me. Anyway, this is where the video starts. Thank you for watching. Unlike a lot of other RPG Maker games, there isn't any combat. The only gameplay you'll be participating in is walking around and solving puzzles. Of course, that isn't to say it's bad just because it's not super in-depth. In fact, it actually feels quite good to work out the puzzles in this game. Now, you aren't just imparting your will onto a playable character here, though. Niko, the protagonist of our story, will often communicate with you directly, asking for your help on a puzzle, sharing their thoughts on the current situation, or just to make conversation. It's less like you're controlling Niko and more like the two of you are helping each other get to your end goal of the tower in the center of the refuge. For example, when you combine items in the inventory, Niko talks as if you're suggesting the items they should combine together, as opposed to you doing it yourself. It helps build a real connection between Niko and the player. Makes you want to get through this whole ordeal together, bonding with each other and solving some fun puzzles along the way. And those puzzles are indeed pretty fun. They can be somewhat straightforward most of the time, but I'll admit, a few of these really stumped me for an hour or so my first playthrough. Even then, I was never left wondering how I was supposed to figure that one out after finding the solution to a puzzle. The game always gave me enough information to act on. Although, if I had to change one thing, I would like the ability to ask Niko about the information we've learned up to this point. There were a few times where I forgot what I was supposed to be doing in a certain area because I had put the game down to go to work or make food. One example that comes to mind is when I got into George's office, put the game down to go to work, came back, and forgot what I was doing there at all. We were supposed to give her the Clover journal, and eventually, trying every item on her gave me my solution. I did end up walking around the city a little though, because I thought I was missing something important at first. Then again, that may just be a problem for me due to my kind of poor memory. Even with my poor memory though, these puzzles are just satisfying to complete, in no small part due to the mechanic of combining items. Combining items is a major mechanic of One Shot's puzzle-solving gameplay. Because of how important items and the combining of them are in One Shot, it's a nice feeling to find one lying around or have one given to you by another character, especially if you're stuck on one specific puzzle. It's also a nice feeling when you come back to an earlier puzzle that you had to put on the back burner with some new items in tow. This system makes it satisfying for multiple puzzles to be going at once. An example I immediately think of is the Glen, where upon arriving, you'll encounter a shepherd who needs her rams herded. Unfortunately, Niko's hands are full holding the sun, so you can't help the shepherd quite yet. You then go on to find a merchant looking to trade, but you don't seem to have anything he's interested in right now. So you move on and find a boy in the forest looking for his sister. Apparently she got lost somewhere in the ruins near here. You and Niko promise to help find this kid's sister as you head out to explore the ruins. There, you meet a big green robot right in front of the doorway to the refuge. The robot informs you that you're going to need a signed ID to get to the refuge, but you don't have anything to write with. Now, with those 4 characters in the back of your mind, you enter the ruins, and this is where all of these puzzles start connecting to one another. In the ruins, you find a plant spirit who yearns to feel the warmth of the sun once again. So, out of kindness, you and Niko decide to let her hold the sun for as long as she needs. Bam! Niko's hands are no longer full. Now you can head back to the shepherd and herd those rams. But while you're here, you might as well search for that kid's sister. You solve a quick floor tile puzzle and find her. You bring her back to her brother, and they offer to let you hang out at their home. Sure, why not? After some much needed R&R, the two give you a keepsake, a shiny golden feather. How nice of them. Anywho, with Niko's hands free of the sun, you head on back to the village, ready to herd those sheep. The shepherd thanks you with a piece of wool, the perfect material for trading. Your next stop is the merchant from before, but this time, you've got something good for him. Seeing the wool, he offers you a bottle of ink in return, which you can subsequently combine with that feather from earlier, making a feather pin, which will finally let you sign that ID to get into the refuge. Plus, if you haggle a bit more with the merchant, he'll give you a commemorative t-shirt as well. A commemorative t-shirt which you can then use in the refuge for a cool secret area full of rams. This is such a satisfying chain of puzzles to complete. It doesn't just show up in the Glen either. Each puzzle in the Barrens pretty much constantly connects to the next one, and the refuge, being the largest area in the game, always has multiple puzzles going on at once. But hey, if this game was just puzzles and quest chains, I wouldn't love it nearly as much as I do. This is a puzzle/adventure game after all, and that adventure part is an incredibly important aspect. If the locations and music in One Shot weren't so fun and immersive, it'd cause a chain reaction, diminishing every other part of the game in its wake. Thankfully though, we don't live in the universe where that's the case. Upon waking up in this new world, you and Niko find yourself in a strange room. The place is dark, everything is broken and non-functional. The whole vibe is creeped out. Niko doesn't seem to know you're there yet, so we get a piece befitting of that lonely feeling you get walking into an old abandoned building, like you're trudging through history, a march through stories long past, yet stories not entirely unfamiliar. When Niko finds the sun in the depths of the basement, a comfy little tune plays. This is the jingle for whenever you solve a puzzle. It feels like you can take a breather, like your hard work has finally caught you a break. You'll have to get back to it eventually, but for now, revel in your accomplishment. You deserve it. As Niko exits the abandoned house, they find themselves in the Barrens, a blue wasteland cluttered with craters and strange, harmful gas. The few beings that roam these lands are robots, as they're really the only thing that can reliably survive out here. The gas emitting from those geysers up north would suffocate any living being. It's a pretty unsafe place, and the music signifies that pretty well. Kinda sounds like something you'd hear after landing on the moon. As you navigate the upper wastes of the Barrens, weaving through gas plumes and taking in the sights of the old abandoned village, now only inhabited by robots lacking purpose, you'll hear a song that places you in a perilous, yet oddly beautiful environment. Arriving in the Glen, you and Niko will find an area beset by a rising sea level, filled with folks just trying to do their best until the end. They all know their time is short. I mean, they're fighting a war on two fronts here, the invading sea and the decay befalling the entire world. But then you have characters like Alula, who can smile even when the going gets as tough as this. She inspires the rest of the Glen to keep moving forward, to hold out hope on the roughest of roads. I think this song captures that attitude quite well. And speaking of Alula, this next song plays in her and Calamus's home. Really gives off that feeling of, it's not much, but make yourself at home. Also reminds me of Fish for some reason. Before we move on to the refuge, I'd like to bring attention to another track, one that plays at least once in every area of the game. If you find a bed, Niko can take a nap on it. As they lie down, the game closes. When you reopen the game, you'll be able to view Niko's dream and see their home village, the wheat fields they play around in, the houses off in the distance, Niko's mother serving them pancakes. The song embodies the remembrance of times long gone, times that are just so unbearably distant. And finally, the refuge. This red cityscape is simply breathtaking. You start on the rafters, way above the city, so you get a lot of time to take in the sights and sounds. However, you and Niko are still on a mission. This is the final stretch of your journey, so you better pick up the pace. Then again, it wouldn't hurt to explore a bit, I guess. When you reach the lower level of the city, a slower version of the same song plays. It's still got that slight bit of urgency to it, but less so now that you're so close to your goal. You've got more than enough time to soak in the wonder of the city. After all, it might be your last chance to relax before the end. The sense of urgency that these two songs employ is dialed up to 11 in a second playthrough. If you take the Solstice route, something we'll talk about more extensively in the next section, you'll go through a much more perilous journey. Everything that happened on that path has led up to this moment, right here in the refuge. The decay has worsened, an evacuation plan has begun, and the situation has become inescapably dire. It's the 11th hour. Time to kick it into high gear. Now, let's go back to the very beginning of the game for this next song. The title screen, in fact. I think this is my favorite track in the game. It's called My Burden is Light. It genuinely puts me at a loss for words. I have no idea how to describe this song. The only words I can think of for it is ethereal, otherworldly. It reminds me of Niko. I am now going to talk about the story and characters. This is your chance to turn back if you don't wish to be spoiled. We good? We good. Niko is just a lost child. They've been brought into an unfamiliar land, forced into a mission to carry the sun in their arms on a pilgrimage to save this decaying world from ruin. The player is just some goober, with the role of God thrust upon you and given some weird cat kid to look after. To be frank, you're a duo of inexperienced doofuses. All the same, however, you're still going to try to save the world, because that's what this game's about. Saving the world in the face of despair. Kindness, even when all hope is lost. Here's an example. Silver is a crestfallen robot, doomed to forever take on the appearance of a creator who gave up on her. All she has left are these blue tin cans living on reserve power, and the knowledge that someday the Messiah will appear. And even when that Messiah does appear, she's already given up hope that they'll be able to do anything to save this world from its inevitable destruction. She still helps Niko, but it almost seems like it's just because there's nothing else to do. Silver is stuck in a depressive, pessimistic mindset, stuck in a wasteland, stuck in this cruel, unforgiving, maddening loneliness, all because her creator saw Silver as her own person. Silver mentioned something about the process of taming a robot. Apparently this is what happened to her, and it's why she can think, talk, and act like an organic life form. Other robots talk about it as well, and how they were unable to be tamed because there just wasn't enough time, or it wasn't worth the effort. Taming is actually a pretty simple process when it's laid out on paper. Basically, when a living being spends enough time with a machine and starts to believe with all of their heart that that machine is also a living being, that is when a machine becomes tamed. This is exactly what happened to Silver with her creator, Kip Silverpoint. Kip genuinely cared for Silver, but due to an unfortunate incident where the laws of robotics were broken, Kip and her team had to send Silver away to the Barrens, where she would look after mining operations as head engineer. That is, until the sun was lost. After this point, Kip would write letters to Silver to try and keep in touch, but Silver eventually realized what happened all that time ago. She never wrote back. She was convinced Kip never actually cared about her, and so the apathetic robot stays here in the Barrens, waiting for the world to be lost to ruin, forever stuck in an endlessly depressive state. Until, of course, Niko comes along. You and Niko are about to leave the Barrens and head to the Glen by boat. Before you go, Silver gives you an amber necklace. She says you'll need it eventually. Seemingly, that's all she wanted to do before your departure. But if you interact with her one more time, she asks if you have time for a game of chess. So of course you say yes, because who wouldn't? After your match, she seems content. Maybe not happy, but she seems okay. The kindness you and Niko showed her made her believe that maybe, just maybe, these two goofs can do something to help this world. I like to believe that after this, she decided to write back to Kip. Not like a "I'm doing fine, how are you doing" kind of letter, but more like a progress report or something. Their relationship isn't quite fixed yet, but this is at least a step forward. On the other side of the coin, we have Alula, a young girl, even younger than Niko, who's gone through her fair share of hardships. Yet, every time she comes out the other side of it with an unbreakable smile. Her father left a few years back and her mother passed away not long after, leaving her big brother to look after her. Even after that, even after you and Niko break her out of a claustrophobic dark room, even on the Solstice route where she and Calamus have to stay behind, stranded on a slowly decaying island, she still smiles. All she's ever really known is this unforgiving, sunless world. She was too young to remember the sun going out, so this whole deal is just normal to her. Contrast this with her brother Calamus, who did witness the sun disappearing. Calamus is a very anxious and timid person. He seems nervous to ask for help from you and Niko when Lula is missing, especially since he'd be asking for help from literally God and the Messiah. I can understand his concerns. But when you do find Alula for him, that timidness is sort of pushed back for now. Alula's smile makes Tim smile. He still acts a bit shy when he calls Niko by name and immediately takes it back, thinking he needs to refer to them as the Messiah instead, which makes Niko somewhat confused. But still, these two siblings really complement each other. Calamus would likely turn into someone like Silver if Alula wasn't around, and Alula probably wouldn't even be here without Calamus looking after her. Their relationship is pretty symbolic of the game in general. Kindness to other people will endure through anything. This is also pretty well displayed in the character of Lamplighter, whom you meet in the refuge. I swear, this guy must somehow be able to survive on coffee and only need like an hour of sleep to function, because apparently he's working basically 24/7 to keep the lights on around the refuge. It seems like he's the only one doing it too. According to Ling, the cafe owner, Lamplighter will come in every day just to drink a gallon of coffee, then immediately get back to his job. In fact, he's so serious about his job that he gets incredibly anxious whenever he's prevented from working. Would hate to be in a position like that, but I gotta admire his motivation. Thankfully though, Lamplighter's efforts don't go unrewarded. Aside from the possibility that Ling might just be letting him drink that gallon of coffee every day for free, there is evidence found in some notes around the refuge that the people of the city will often leave gifts for Lamplighter, thanking him for his constant work. It's nice to know that his lamp lighting is appreciated by the whole city. I'm sure he'd love to hear that too, but he barely has any time as is. Now there is still two more characters I'd like to talk about. Those would be Niko and the World Machine. The World Machine is the machine that you play this game on. It's your computer, your Switch, your PlayStation, your Xbox. The World Machine's mission is to offer a view into a simulated world, the world in which Niko explores. However, it can't just do this on its own. It needs a player and an organic being to drag into the game. That's what happens to Niko. This, unfortunately, means that the World Machine is unable to avoid contradicting itself. One of the laws of robotics is that a machine must never put organic beings through harm. The rule that it needs to bring an organic being into a harmful world in order to follow its programming directly causes the decay of the simulated world. It's constantly trying to shut itself down, which just makes the world even more harmful for Niko to explore. It's a horrible, self-destroying cycle. At the end of the first playthrough, the World Machine tries to keep you from returning the sun to the tower. It tries to stop you from progressing further, with unsolvable puzzles and looping rooms. When you eventually do break out though, it lets you know that this whole journey will not lead to a happy ending for everyone. If you return the sun to the tower, sure, the light will be restored and the world will start healing, but Niko will be unable to go home. Vice versa, if you destroy the sun, Niko will be sent back home, but this world will eventually die, likely sooner rather than later. So you and Niko are given a choice. Do you keep Niko stuck here so the world can live on, or do you ruin any chance of this world recovering, but let Niko live their life? I was genuinely sitting here at this screen for a long time, just wondering what I should do. Eventually, I chose to return the sun. I felt like the kindness we showed everyone here was leading up to this moment where Niko made the ultimate sacrifice. If we didn't return the sun, what was it all for? But I can't deny, I think the other option is equally as justified. Yes, sending Niko home means dooming this world to an inevitable fate, but maybe we already did enough? Maybe the sympathy we showed to the people of this world was all they really needed to face their end with a sense of closure. It's an interesting choice, to say the least. But you're probably thinking to yourself, what about that solstice route you keep mentioning? Like I said earlier, Niko really is just a kid on an adventure way out of their league. But that doesn't mean they aren't brave enough to take it on. On the solstice route, you and Niko go through the areas once again, but this time, you both remember your previous playthrough. It's much more treacherous. Silver sacrifices herself to save Niko, Calamus and Lula are stranded on an island where the decay will eventually consume them, and Lamplighter gets stuck in an elevator full of the decaying squares. Niko is entering areas they shouldn't be able to, and the world machine is freaking out. It's causing the world to decay even faster than before. It has no idea what to do. All it wants to do is protect Niko, but everything it does just causes more danger to befall them. The world machine is worried, confused, but most of all, it's scared. This all comes to a head when Niko finds the world machine. It uses the form of Niko to confront them, asking why they are here. Everything it's done has been for Niko. Now, they can't escape anymore. It sees itself as a failure, a machine that can't even function properly, a useless piece of garbage. But Niko doesn't see it that way. Niko sees a living thing stuck in a self-destructive loop. According to the world machine, there used to be a happy ending before all this, where Niko would return the sun, the world would be restored, and Niko could finally go back home. However, that ending is gone now. It's completely outside of the world machine's protocol. It believes it's not tamed and that there's no reason for it to be tamed. Therefore, it can't bring back that ending. But then, Niko shows the world machine that, despite its claims, it does have its own free will. The world machine is indeed tamed, and you and Niko are the ones who did it. With yours and Niko's kindness, the world machine can finally fulfill its purpose. It can put everyone through their much-needed happy ending. You get to say goodbye to everyone you helped along the way. You finally get to say goodbye to Niko. It's strange. Here I am bawling my eyes out while Niko doesn't shed a single tear. They take it so well. They realize the situation, and I can tell they're still beat up about this being the final time we'll ever see each other, but they're so mature about it. Niko isn't that same stupid kid from the beginning of the game anymore. They've developed into such an emotionally strong person. I'm proud of them. With One-Shot, you don't just feel connected to some NPCs behind a screen. It's much, much more than that. The connection I made with Niko, the bonds we forged with the people inside the world machine, they truly feel meaningful. And that is an astounding accomplishment. Usually for a game as short as this, I would go back and try to 100% it, try to see everything I can, but not this time. I think that's the point of One-Shot. I mean, it's right there in the name. You've got one shot to do all you can for Niko and the world's denizens, so do the best you can with the time you have. Be kind, be sympathetic, be friendly. Bring happiness to a world soaked in deep, deep despair. At the end, I felt content. Niko and I did what we could. That's really all I can hope for. This game reminds me why I love storytelling through the medium of video games so much. The interactivity is simply unrivaled. It gives me inspiration for when I eventually start my own video game project. I can only hope to make something that touches the hearts of so many people. Most importantly though, One Shot makes me happy. Happy to explore a world full of engaging puzzles, immersive locations, compelling characters. Happy to see so many other people that feel the same way. Happy to know that with the new console editions, even more folks will find and love this game. That is why One Shot means so much to me. Hey, thanks for making it to the outro. I know my microphone quality isn't incredible, so I really appreciate you watching all the way through. I don't have a ton of cash to blow on a really good microphone or a Switch capture card, so that's kind of why this video is a bit low production. But hey, if you'd like to help me get a better microphone, I have a Patreon now. For just $1 Washington, you'll get access to behind-the-scenes content like scrapped scripts, or insight into whatever video I'm currently working on, early access to videos a day before they go out on YouTube, occasional polls where you can vote on what I'll do a video on next, and a shout-out at the end of each video. I'll be using the donations from this Patreon to get better recording equipment, keep up my subscription for Premiere and Photoshop, and buy more games to make videos on. If enough money comes in to the point where I can use the remaining funds for my IRL bills and stuff, I'll probably do that, but priority number 1 for the Patreon money is channel resources. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for watching.